Hey, what is going on, guys? It's DK. Back at you with another video here for an early look breakdown of the NFL Week 15 main slate on Draftkings. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, my name's DK. I make daily videos breaking down NBA, NFL, PGA, esports, daily fantasy sports slates. I want to thank you guys again for the support. It has been insane recently on the live streams. Again, on Saturday in NBA preseason, we had over 400 concurrent viewers. I have just a ton of content coming out for you guys with videos every day, live streams every day. Like later today, I'll be live for the NBA preseason slate as well as the Monday Night Football Showdown slate, also getting this early look video out for you guys. So if you enjoy all this free content, would really appreciate it if you could leave a like button on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't want to upload videos, you don't want to go live. Those things really, really help me out. And if you have friends that enjoy or that play DFS and you enjoy the content, spread the word. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Also, if you guys cannot watch these videos, I do upload an Apple Podcast. The link is in the description below to the DK DFS show. But with that out of the way, let's jump into the video. So before I talk about players and their prices for this Week 15 slate, let's take a look back at my lineup from Week 14. So Week 14, if you guys watched the videos, if you caught the live stream Sunday morning, the core I gave was Aaron Rodgers with Davante Adams, Austin Eckler, David Montgomery. All were really, really good. Rodgers, 30 fantasy points, Davante, 27.5, Eckler, 23, and David Montgomery, 27.5 fantasy points. So those guys crushed. Where I guess went wrong was the value. I originally had Braxton Berrios in here. Now, we got news that Crowder, it was surprising because he didn't practice at all on Friday. It was looking doubtful, everyone was saying, and then he was available. So I took Berrios out. I put Blake in because when Julio has been out, he's the guy that's kind of filled in. But the Atlanta Falcons always troll me with this, and they went with Laquan Treadwell. So that was super annoying. Mooney for value was pretty solid. He caught a touchdown. Hayden Hurst, again, that was a little bit disappointing. Swift, I liked as a GPP play. I knew not a lot of people would be on him because he hadn't played in a couple weeks. Got him at 2% owned, 15 fantasy points. And finally, the Washington defense. They were the defense I liked the best. Talked about that in the live stream, 23 fantasy points. So, if I don't get 1.7 fantasy points from two players combined, it's probably a massive, massive day for me. So, I know a lot of you guys had really solid days, but yeah, let's see if we can keep it going. So that's a look back. Let's take a look now at Week 15. So before we talk about players and their prices, let's take a look at these Vegas odds. We have Chicago, we have Minnesota. It's a 46 over under. The Vikings are 3-point favorites. Patriots, Dolphins, a 41 over under. The Dolphins are 2.5-point favorites. Dolphins, at least a lot of their targets, they could be missing the three top targets with Devontae, with Jakeem Grant, and with Mike Gesicki. 49ers, Cowboys, a 45.5 over under. The 49ers are 3-point favorites. We have Seahawks, Washington, a 43.5 over under. Seahawks are 3-point favorites. Bucks, Falcons, a 51 over under. The Bucks are 5.5-point favorites. We have Jets, we have Rams, a 44.5 over under. The Rams are currently 17-point favorites. Eagles, Cardinals, 48 over under. The Cardinals are 6.5-point favorites. We have Chiefs, Saints. Not looking like Drew Brees will be back for this one, but we'll see. 51.5 over under. The Chiefs are 4-point favorites, and that's what we have so far for the main slate. Also, we do have a Saturday slate, a 2-game slate. I'll have a video up for that as well as a live stream. So, again, guys, just a ton of content coming out for you. But let's start with quarterback as always. And at the top, Patrick Mahomes in play every single week. Now, I was hammering down the video and the live stream to play either Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers this week in cash. Mahomes finished 24. Rodgers, I told you guys that's who I was going with. Finished with 30. Just in play every single week. There's enough value, and there's some decent value already. There'll probably be more value that opens up. I really just think you get the top quarterbacks into your lineups. Now, there are some interesting value plays that are in play here. We'll go over a couple. But once again, I'm liking the quarterbacks at the top. So, yeah, Mahomes, even in a tougher spot, is just in play every single week. Lamar at 7.5. The matchup is really good here against the Jags. I want to see how he does tonight against Cleveland. Interested to see. He's been struggling to throw the ball, but again, the reason he's in play is because of his rushing ability. Russell Wilson at 7.3 against Washington. Honestly, I'm not super excited about it. I'm probably going to look elsewhere. Kind of the same thing with Kyler at 7K. I don't mind the price. He did run the ball a little bit more, 47 yards on 13 attempts. I think he's a fine option, but I don't think I'm prioritizing him. Now, the guy that I really like at the moment in the mid-range is Deshaun Watson. And I always talk about this, but the reason being is Houston's defense is literally terrible. They cannot stop anyone. So it's great for Deshaun because he's always playing from behind. Now, he got honestly really unlucky that last game if you played him. Akers dropped a touchdown, and then on the goal line, he got injured, or I think got hit in the balls. He had to come out for a play. So it could have been a little bit of a bigger day for Deshaun Watson. The match against the Colts might scare some people away, but the Colts defense recently have been really struggling. So I think Watson is a pretty nice play in the mid-range. Another guy that does have some rushing upside as well. I do like him quite a bit there. Tannehill, always mention this with him, but you need the negative game script, right? Positive game script against Jacksonville. They're playing from ahead. They're not going to throw the ball a ton, so he's not going to get there. In a game against Cleveland, they fell behind big time. Well, that's when he has the upside. So Tennessee is going to pound the run if it's neutral or even playing from ahead. So 6-7, you kind of need the negative game script here for Tannehill there against Detroit. Brady at 6-6 against Atlanta. Not super excited about it. He's been a little bit up and down. Now the targets for Tampa Bay do seem a little bit underpriced. Again, kind of an off game for him and everyone in Tampa Bay, to be honest. Only 15 fantasy points for Brady. None of the receivers, surprisingly, in a pretty good spot, had good games. This is a pretty good spot for against Atlanta, but I don't think I'm really going to prioritize Brady. I would rather play Deshaun Watson at a similar price. Other options in the mid-range. Well, we have Taysom Hill at 6K. So got to keep an eye on Drew Brees news. It doesn't look like he'll be available. If he's not, then I think Taysom Hill makes for a really nice play here at 6K. He's been playing solid. That game they fell behind against Philly, he had to air it out more, and he looked pretty good. 28 of 38. Again, he has rushing upside. And this is a game you expect the Saints to probably be playing from behind against the Chiefs. So I actually do like Taysom Hill quite a bit here in the mid-range, assuming Drew Brees is out. And then cheaper quarterback options, there's a couple. Jalen Hurts at 5'9", matchup solid against Arizona. He had over 100 yards rushing, so that's why he's in play. His rushing ability, throwing the ball wasn't great, about 50% completion percentage, but at this price, again, you don't need a ton to pay out the salary. So I like Hurts, I like Taysom Hill because they're rushing upside, both in play for cheap quarterback options. And then finally, Trubisky. He was my favorite value last week. Once again, I was really high in the Bears, and they all paid off. Trubisky, Robinson, Mooney, Montgomery, all smashed. 5.5K for Trubisky against Minnesota, I think is once again in play here. So that's kind of where I'm thinking for quarterback. That's really it for me. Minshew is going to start, but I don't really want to play him against Baltimore. All right, let's move on to running back. And running back is pretty loaded. Derrick Henry, I do not like this guy. He either, like the Seattle wide receivers, either Metcalf or Lockett, he either breaks the slate or does absolutely nothing. Just look at the last three games. 39, 6, 41 fantasy points. He has a floor of 5 fantasy points, upside of 40. So a great GPP play. I think you can still go to him in cash too. Am I going to play him? I am not, but I'm not going to talk you off him. Again, it's hard to ignore. He comes alive in December. It literally is true. He just comes alive late in the season. 170 yards against the Colts, 215 against the Jags, and this is a really good matchup against Detroit. So I feel like he's going to be pretty high owned. I have no issue if you go to him. Just personally, I'm not going to go there. But I get it if you play Derrick Henry, and it's a scary fade. Like I said, I will be fading him once again. Full disclosure, I will. I'm scared shitless of it, but yeah, I will be fading Derrick Henry. I'm not going to talk you off him if you want to play him. Dalvin Cook at 9K is a pass to me against Chicago. Kamara at 7-4 against Kansas City. This is interesting, right? Because we weren't really on Kamara because, they just weren't passing the ball. But in a game they fell behind against Philadelphia, we kind of got the old Alvin Kamara, 7 catches and 10 targets. And you got to assume, right, I don't think they're going to be playing from ahead against the Chiefs. Most likely, they're going to be playing from behind. So if they do fall behind a couple scores, they're going to have to air it out. That makes Kamara a lot more viable. And at 7-4, pretty cheap price point. So I actually think Kamara is in play. You do kind of need the negative game script for him, right? You don't want them to be playing from ahead. Kind of weird to say for running back, but you want the Saints to fall behind here for Kamara. But I think he is in play. Jonathan Taylor, starting to turn it on here. Getting more touches. 20 carries the last game. Had 2 touchdowns, 150 yards. The touches in Wilkins, basically, there was, I don't think he even touched the ball. Hines, it will still get some carries here and there. But now it's looking like it's Jonathan Taylor's backfield. Matchup great here against Houston, so I think he's fine. The only issue is the price jumped $1,400, and I think he might be maybe a little over-owned just off that last game, but I think Taylor is definitely in play in both formats right now, right? Because the reason why I didn't think we can play him in cash is because the Colts have just been using 3 running backs. Well, again, he's starting to get more work. Wilkins basically being phased out. Hines, the touches are going down for him. So Taylor definitely in play there at 7-2. Robinson at 7-1 against Baltimore is a pass for me. Montgomery at 7K. I like him once again. Hey, what happened to all those people who Dave Montgomery sucks, right? I was hearing that constantly this year. Montgomery's terrible. Well, look at the last 3 games. 28, 27, and 27 fantasy points. And the matchup here against Minnesota is really good. Positives with Dave Montgomery is he's going to be at the majority of the game. They are surprisingly giving Cordarrelle a little bit more work out of the backfield. So, like, Montgomery's not going to play 100% of the snaps like he was early this season, but he's getting a lot of carries. He's very involved in the passing game flow independent. So I like Montgomery once again here at 7K. Even with the price going up, I think he's definitely viable. Sanders had a big game last game. Had that long run, 14 carries, 115 yards, 2 touchdowns. At 6'9", I think is a fine option, but I probably prefer the other backs so that we just went over. Other options at running back. So, Cam Akers. Well, finally, he's getting the bell cow role. I wasn't fully convinced in that showed on slate, and he proved me wrong. 29 carries. So, it's looking like he is going to be the bell cow back. Now, I'm still not like 100% convinced because it's Sean McVay, and you can never trust what he's going to do. But based off what we've seen in the last couple of games, 21 and 29 carries, and based off the fact that the Rams should be playing from ahead, I think Cam Akers is a pretty good play here. I do. Involved a little bit in the passing game. So at 6.6K, again, if he is going to be their bell cow back, you can expect probably 25 plus touches from him. So at 6.6K in a game, they should be playing from ahead. I do like Cam Akers a good amount there in the mid-range. I also mentioned DeAndre Swift. Now, he only played about half the game. I think just because of the fact that was his first game in a few weeks, I would assume the snaps do go up for him. And he is clearly their best running back for Detroit. Now, AP Carrion still got some touches, but again, I think the snaps do go up for Swift in a pretty good matchup. I do like him as well in the mid-range. Other options at running back, well, Ronald Jones, the surprise late scratch or healthy scratch for Fournette, made Jones more viable. He had 18 carries. He had 1 catch and 2 yards, or 1 catch on 2 targets. The matchup against Atlanta is solid. This is a game they should be playing from ahead in. So I think Ronald Jones is in play in the mid-range again in both formats. Below this, well, McKissick, I talked about this a ton in the video as well as in the live stream. I thought he would be over-owned. And what you need out of McKissick is the negative game script. Well, they were playing from ahead that entire game. He had 2 catches, right? So, for McKissick to pay off his salary, you need them to fall behind. Now, this game against Seattle, probably do play from behind. Gibson's status, let's see, let's go up to Antonio Gibson. We don't know yet. So, again, it's early. I'm making this Monday. If Gibson does play, probably takes McKissick out of play. So, yeah, that'll be something to keep an eye on. But, yeah, with McKissick himself, again, you need the negative game script. Other options running back, like Kenyon Drake's been getting a lot of carries. I mean, it was positive game script for him, right? 23 carries, 80 yards. This matchup against Philly, you would assume they probably play from ahead. So I think you can make the argument for Drake. Again, has been getting a little bit more involved in the passing game. 5, 4, 3, 1 targets last 4 games. I think he's a fine play in the mid-range. Below this, there's really not a ton I like a lot. The San Francisco running backs, you can take a shot at one of them, but they will utilize 3, 4 backs. I don't want to play the Baltimore running backs. I don't trust it. And yeah, that's really it. So let's move on to wide receiver. Wide receiver, Tyreek, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes. They are in play every single week if you can get to them. No issue. You probably do have to overpay a bit. 8.8 is you're going to have to use a lot of salary. But like I said, he has upside to go for 40, 50, 60 fantasy points. So, Hill, I think more suited for GPPs for me at that price. With Metcalf and Lockett against Washington, honestly, I'm not super excited about it. We have Calvin Ridley at 8.2. Well, I was told that he doesn't have good games and Julio's out. I think that's wrong, right? 30 fantasy points. He can clearly have good games when Julio is not there. So the downside, though, is the price went up, and the matchup against Tampa Bay, not necessarily the best. So with the price hike of $700, I'm not super excited about Ridley. Hopkins at 7.9 against Philly, I think makes for a decent play. I think it's priced about right. I mean, the targets will be there, averaging about 10 targets a game, does possess upside. If you want to pair him with Kyler, who, the price has gone down in Kyler, I don't mind that for tournaments. Robinson, well, he's a guy I was really high on last week. 30 fantasy points. Again, I was super high on the Bears. I still think the Bears are pretty much, are all look pretty good still. The price went up in Robinson, the price went up in Montgomery, the price went up a little on Trubisky, but I think all three are in play again on this slate. With the Minnesota receivers, well, what you know with Minnesota, again, you know where the targets are going to. It's Jefferson, it's Thielen. They're in play just because no one else really does a ton with the receiving corps there for Minnesota. Michael Thomas at 7.2. Same thing I'll say about Kamara, right? This is a game they're probably going to be playing from behind. So I think this makes Michael Thomas a lot more viable. And he still had some good games with Taysom Hill. 9 catches, 12 targets, 104 yards. 9 catches, 11 targets, 105 yards. 8 catches, 8 targets, 84 yards. So I kind of like Thomas. I kind of like Kamara here. I assume the Saints are playing from behind. So those guys look pretty decent. Now, Cooper Kupp at 7K, I'm probably not going to get to. I just don't have confidence in the Jets scoring points. Like, this is what I'm worried about. Kind of like what happened against New England, right? New England just could not move the ball. Well, the Rams, they didn't have to throw the ball. So, like, Kupp just wasn't involved a ton. So that's why I'm not overly excited about these Rams wide receivers. In the mid-range, McLaurin at 6.6. This is kind of a nice buy low opportunity. The price is slowly coming down a little bit on him, right? He got up to 7K. Now he's at 6.6. I guess it's not come down a ton, but back-to-back below average games for him of only 3 and 4 fantasy points. Still, I like the matchup here, and he still does possess some upside. So McLaurin, viable there at 6.6K, even with, again, bad quarterback play. Mentioned the Tampa Bay receivers with Evans, Godwin, and Antonio Brown. The hard thing there is just, again, where is the production going to go is a little bit hard to kind of nail down. Now, Brandon Ayuk at 6.3, I think is going to be one of the more popular plays in the slate. I think it's for good reason. Against Dallas, the matchup's great. 10, 14, 9, and 16 targets. And also, Deebo Samuel went down. So, they don't have a ton of healthy wide receivers here. Ayuk should be peppered with targets at 6.3K. I think he makes for a really good play in the mid-range. The other San Francisco wide receivers, we could have some value here. It looks like potentially Deebo Samuel might be out for the year. So if he's out, Kendrick Bourne, Richie James should fill in as the 2 and 3 wide receivers at 4.1 and 3.6. I think they're fine options in a good matchup. Let's see. Other options of wide receiver, well, Cook's still status up in the air. So let's go to Houston. I think there's definitely value for Houston as well. This is a game, Houston, like I said, they're probably going to be playing from behind. If Cooks is out, it's Kiki Cutie out of the slot. It's Chad Hansen and Steven Mitchell Jr. out wide. Chad Hansen at 4.2, liked him for value. 7 catches, 56 yards, 12.6 fantasy points. That was perfectly fine. I like him again here just because if Cooks is out, that's where the targets are going. It's Hansen and even Steven Mitchell Jr., right? 3 catches, 5 targets. These guys are viable if Cooks is out. So that'll be something to monitor. Kiki Cutie at 5.3. His role doesn't change, right? He's still playing out the slot. He had 3 catches, 3 targets. Again, that week against the Colts where he was chalk, I think people got bailed out a bit because everyone was like, oh, Fuller's out. We got to play Kiki Cutie. Well, Kiki Cutie's role didn't change. He still played out of the slot. He just had that long catch. So that's another story. But I think in that week, people that played, I'm not saying he's a bad play, but just a little bit over-owned. All right. Let's go back to, again, the mid-range. Parker, question. So let's talk about Miami here. There's definitely some value here with Miami. Let's see. Parker left the game. Jakeem Grant left the game. Also, Gesicki left the game. Preston Williams in the IR. So they are really depleted at wide receiver. If all those guys are out, I think the de facto number 1 wide receiver would be Lynn Bowden. 7 catches and 9 targets last game. 3.6K. Matt Collins as well. 3.5K, right? They just don't have any other healthy receivers. So there is potential value here for Miami as well. Again, dependent on news, but let's see. Marvin Jones Jr., if Golladay is still out, it's him, it's Hockenson. I've been hammering that down. And these guys have been really consistent. 12, 12, and 8 targets. Hawkinson's been averaging double-digit targets. I like them in a good match against Tennessee. Like, this is a game I could see shooting out, Tennessee and Detroit. So Marvin Jones Jr., Hockenson, I like them both. We'll get to Hockenson in a bit. Ty has really turned it on finally late in the season. 18, 28, and 25 fantasy points. He has a really easy schedule, like upcoming. This, again, great match against Houston. You can definitely run a game stack if you do like Watson, pair him with one of the receivers, run it back with Ty or Jonathan Taylor. Like, this is another game I could see shooting out. Other options in the mid-ranges. Next tier is, like, it always seems like, or at least recently, like the 4K range, high 4K to low 4K range is not a ton that I'm super excited about. Again, mentioned Chad Hansen. Darnell Mooney, I think, is still fine at 3.9. He's going to be out the majority of the game. Demir Bird at 3.8. Another guy that, again, will be out there a good amount of the game. 3.8K is fair price. I think potential value play there. We mentioned those Miami receivers, right? The Jets receivers against the Rams probably don't want to do it. Gallup, again, he is up and down, but 3.5 is still too cheap. I know, again, he does have a low floor, but at this price, like, he has upside to go for like 20 plus fantasy points. Not a lot of receivers in this range do. So Gallup, yes, he's in play. Does have a somewhat low floor, though. Just know the risk, right? And that probably wraps it up for me. You know, interested to see what Devin Duvernay does tonight, playing kind of out of the slot. We'll see what his role is going to have him. They have Boykin kind of fill in for the number 3 role. Let's talk about tight end. Kelsey, same thing let's say about Mahomes, same thing let's say about Tyreek Hill. In play every single week. You could run a game stack here if you want to, if you want to go a Saint stack with like Taysom and either Kamara or Michael Thomas, and run it back with someone in Kansas City. I like that. Or you could do the other way. Mahomes, pair with either Hill or Kelsey, run it back with either Michael Thomas or Kamara. Sure, it's an expensive stack, but there's already a good amount of value, and probably more will open up throughout this week. Mark Andrews at 5.5 is fine, right? The matchup's great. He's a guy that can look to in the red zone. Hockenson, he's just someone I've really been hammering down every single week. I like him a lot, again, at 5.2. 7, 8, 9, 11 targets, especially if Galladay's out. Because when Detroit's throwing it, it's Hockenson, it's Marvin Jones Jr. They're staying peppered with targets. Detroit's defense also really bad. So most of the time, Detroit is playing from behind, kind of like Houston, right? It's good. So Hockenson, Marvin Jones Jr., I like a good amount there in the mid-range. Jasecki's status is up in the air. I don't think he'll play. The issue is they have 2 tight ends. They have Shaheen. They have Dalton Smythe. So I don't know if one really benefits more than the other. So I don't know if I go there for value. Logan Thomas at 4K. Well, the matchup's good. 9, 7 targets, back-to-back games. Again, like I always say with him, he plays like the entire game. He runs a lot of routes. I think Logan Thomas is a fine play here. Finally did get that price hike there to 4K. Goddard at 3.9. He's the only Philly guy I would pair with Jalen Hurts if you wanted to stack. Hurts is underpriced, or is cheap, right? He does have rushing upside. But Goddard's the only target I would trust here. Again, he's out the majority of the game, also running a lot of routes. Targets have been good. 6, 10, 7, and 6 targets last 4 games. Cheaper tight ends. Well, we got to keep an eye on Kyle Rudolph's status. If he is out, Irv Smith, again, he'll be like the number 1 tight end. He's their best pass-catching tight end. I think he's okay there in the mid-range. Ertz at 3.4. It is cheap, but just not really. It's kind of Goddard taking over as the number 1 tight end there for Philly. Hayden Hurst, he's out there a good amount of the game, but Atlanta's just struggling throwing the ball. And Hurst targets are going down as well. Dalton Schultz at 3.2K. I think it actually is an okay value. Another guy that will be out there a good amount of the game. Targets have been going down a little bit on him, but he's still a guy that can go out and get you, 10, 12 fantasy points, 3.2K. Definitely viable. Last guy I'll mention here is Cole Kmet, 3K. Again, mentioned him last week for value. Mention him again. Snaps going up, targets going up. He is overtaking Jimmy Graham as number 1 tight end. 7 and 7 targets, back-to-back games, 4 and 5 catches. I like Cole Kmet as well. So yeah, a lot of Bears I'm pretty high on again. But I think that really wraps it up for tight end. Again, defense we'll talk about more in the final look as well as on the live stream Sunday morning. So that's going to do it for the video today, guys. If you have been enjoying the content so far, I'd really appreciate if you leave a like button on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload videos, you know when I go live. Again, always 1 hour before lock, Sunday morning, I'll be live. So thanks again. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you all later.